Welcome back to 16 weeks of SATs and what is a very much in-demand bonus video. So this week or today, in the final run-up to SATs, we are going to be producing, or I'm going to be taking you through some key information to do with the reading paper. There's been lots of requests for me to do a comprehension video. Now the first thing to state really is that I was a little bit apprehensive about doing this because I know schools, teachers, your teachers will have taken you diligently through the reading papers and given you strategies to undertake to be successful in the SATs. Now, the first disclaimer is we don't want to be really changing that approach, okay? So it's not long until SATs. So we really, whatever you've been practicing for the past few weeks and months, stick to that approach. We don't want to be changing something last minute and saying, Andrew said to do this. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take you through a very, very simple approach. And it's all about key information. What is the key information in a text? So when you read these three texts that you're going to get in a couple of weeks, what is the information that I need to be looking out for? Some of you will underline information, some of you won't. But I'm going to show you 3 things and 5 things that you need to be aware of when you're reading a paper, and which words are the most important words to look out for. That might sound and seem a little bit weird, but I've got 4 examples in the video that I'm going to show you what to be looking out for. I don't have any practice examples for you to have a go at, so there's 4 texts, that I'm going to take you through, very short strands, but I'm going to show you how to look for these 3 bits to start with, 3 bits of key information. And those 3 bits of key information are very, very simple. Names, numbers, and unknown vocabulary. So I'm going to take you through that. And the other 2 things that we need to look out for in particular, and I'll show you the importance, are verbs and adjectives, especially in fiction. So I'm going to take you through some examples and I'm going to show you exactly how those 3 and 5 things work, and how if you use them well and you spot them and you identify them as you're reading, how they can help you answer questions very, very, very quickly. And the effect of that is that if we can answer questions quickly, we can move through the text quickly and get into the higher levels of marks when it comes to getting expected or getting greater depth, okay? So we can really ensure that we get through the whole paper because we're working confidently and we're working quickly, okay? So I'm not going to say any more because it's quite a long video and we're going to get stuck into it. If you have any questions, obviously put them in the comments. Please subscribe, okay? It's took a lot of effort to produce this. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the channel. Please share it with people far and wide so that we can help the channel get to more and more people and help them with their SATs. So let's get stuck into this much anticipated reading comprehension video. So let's get into the reading content for this video. Now, one of the key things is, obviously this session is about reading comprehension. One of the key things is there's not long now until SATs, or in most instances. And one of the key things with this video is we don't really want to contradict what your teachers have been saying in school already. We want to make sure that if you're not too far out from your SATs, that actually the best thing to do at this point is to do what school have been teaching you to do in terms of the reading paper and how you attack that reading paper. And in essence, this video is all about if you're struggling with reading and you maybe what's being said in school isn't helping you and you want to try and get a few extra marks, this video might help, okay? But essentially, what your teacher's been saying in school about the process of reading the text or not reading, whatever the approach is in school, at this point, we really want to stick with that, and I'm not going to contradict that too much. So today's video is just going to add a few little things in that will hopefully help you score an extra few marks. And if anything, this video is very much about trying to make the reading paper much easier to attack. Okay, so when it comes to the reading paper, it's very much about you've got these few little strategies that I'm going to give you, and they make reading the paper and getting back to the information very, very simple. And that's what today's session is about. It's about understanding what the key information is. And you might have heard your teacher or an adult talk about this. What's the key information in the text, or what's the key information in the question? And we're going to look at that today, so that when you go into the test in a few weeks' time, that you really understand, well, what is the key information? There's loads of words in the text. Which bits of information are going to help me answer the questions? And this will help you answer questions more quickly, find information more quickly, and that will get you more marks as well, because you're working more quickly. So basically what we're looking for when we read a reading paper is we're looking for these things. So in both non-fiction texts, we know that in the reading paper we get three texts, and you may get some poetry, but you're definitely going to get a non-fiction text and a fiction text, and maybe 2 fiction, 1 non-fiction. We'll see. It slightly varies, but we need to be aware that we're reading non-fiction or fiction. So the 3 key things when it comes to, and I'm going to reference these all the time, the 3 key things that we need to be spotting in the text that we read, and this keeps it really, really simple. We're looking for nouns, which are basically people, the names of people, the names of places, the names of objects and things. Okay, so they're just your everyday common nouns. So it could be a tree, it could be a bottle, it could be a coat, it could be a dog. So just the normal things. People and places are going to have most likely capital letters, as they are proper nouns. And then the other thing to look out for, especially when it comes to fiction, are emotions. So when it talks about love or sadness or anger, those words are really important in terms of signposts. And that's what this key information is all about. We're creating signposts. And if we think of a text as a map, these pieces of information, this key information, are the signposts and the locations on the map that are going to help us get there quickly. And if we've got a map, it's easier to get to places, isn't it? And that's what we've got to think about. So we're looking for nouns. So they're names, basically names of people, places, objects, and emotions. So just keep that in mind. The next thing in a text that we're looking for are numbers. And these are going to crop up more often in non-fiction. So you might have a report about, I don't know, starfish. But within that report about starfish, there's probably going to be some numbers, some details about starfish in particular. But any text that we're reading, any years, any times, any dates, any ages, percentages, fractions, statistics, weight, amounts, times, anything to do with a number or a period of time or an amount, we need to spot that and know where it is, because it's going to help us get back there very, very quickly. So we need to remember, we need to be able to spot nouns, and we need to spot numbers. And I've put them like this because this is dead easy to remember, nouns and numbers. And the third thing that we're going to look to identify when we're reading a text is unknown vocabulary. And basically, unknown vocabulary, as I've said here, are just words that you don't know. And the key thing in a reading paper is, when you there'll be words that you come across that you don't know. The best way to approach them is to just think, great. Okay, I don't really know what it means, and there's nothing we can do about that at that point. So we just need to remember where that word is, all right? Because we can still get marks about words that we don't know, because really knowing it'd be great if we did know what the word meant, but if we don't know what that word means, it doesn't mean that we're going to spend a lot of time in it and slow ourselves down. We just make a note of where that word is, because it might help us get back there very, very quickly. And guaranteed there's probably going to be a question about it, okay? So unknown vocabulary. So these 3 things of nouns, numbers, and unknown vocabulary, these are the 1, 2, 3 things that we're going to be looking for when we read a text. And we're going to go into some examples of this so you can see what I mean, okay? Very, very important. Nouns, numbers, unknown vocabulary. Have that in your head when you're reading a text. I need to spot nouns, numbers, unknown vocabulary. And then as we drift into fiction, there are just some other things that we should be aware of. When we're reading fiction, we're still looking for nouns, so that's names of people and places. We're still looking for unknown vocab. Well, we're not looking for it, but when we encounter a word that we don't know, we're going to highlight it or underline it. And then numbers, obviously dead straightforward. The other 2 things just to consider when we read fiction, so that was generally going to be some sort of story, a narrative, are adjectives and verbs. Okay, so we know that adjectives describe nouns, so they're those descriptive words. So it might be the ancient house. Ancient would be the adjective. Okay, I would potentially, if I knew I was reading fiction, I'd be highlighting ancient. And quite in particular, the adjectives that are chosen in the text are probably going to be different to ancient. So I think in a past paper, we've got words like gnarled. It was talking about a tree. So that adjective is very important. It's probably going to be an answer to a question, or it's going to help us answer a question. So we need to spot those words. The other things that we need to spot are verbs. So those are those words that describe actions. So it might be a word like Andrew stumbled across the playground. Okay, stumbled being the verb. That verb is going to help us answer inference questions. Okay, because we might get a question that says, how do we know that Andrew struggled to get across the playground? Or how do we know that Andrew was tired? And the evidence there is struggled. So because in the text it says Andrew struggled. So those verbs are going to be very important. And that's it. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves with too much information. But basically the 5 things that we're looking to spot in a text, the 3 main ones are nouns, numbers, and unknown vocabulary. But the 4th and 5th ones, when we get to fiction in particular, are we just being super aware of those adjectives and verbs that are used in particular within the text, because they're going to help us with inference questions, and they're going to help us with those vocabulary style questions as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this, we need to remember these, and we're going to take them into some practical examples, and I'm going to show you how this key information is going to help you answer questions quicker. Okay, so the key thing now is, here we go, we have a text. And what we're going to do is we're going to read this text as you would in the SAT. So we're going to imagine that this is the first time, well, it is the first time we've seen this text. And what I'm going to do is, as I read the text, I'm going to highlight the key information. So remember, the key information, the nouns, numbers, the unknown vocabulary. And we can see that this is a non-fiction text. It's about deserts, so it's very factual. And straight away, you can probably see some nouns, some numbers, some percentages, all those things. Let's just, we can see those there, 20%, 401, the Sahara Desert, hot and dry. So we've got this punctuation that's hot and dry and semi-arid. So there's loads of bits there that we're thinking, right, what is the key information? I can see some of it already. So the key is, a lot of you will have maybe been trained to underline the key information. And this is what the key information is. I like to highlight it off so you can see it. You're obviously not going to do that. You might underline it, or just as you read the text, it's just being aware of these. So I'm going to read through it, and I'm going to highlight all the key information. One of the most important things as well, just before we start, is not to worry about getting every bit of key information. If we're sort of in that 80% ballpark, and as you've read through the text, you've highlighted most of it or underlined it, you're going to be in a great position. Okay? And the reason why I highlight it is just so at the end of reading the text, you can really see which information is important. All right. The other thing to note here is the name of the text, deserts, that's going to crop up a lot. So we've got deserts, we've got deserts, we've got deserts, we've got deserts. So the word deserts isn't really going to help us. So I'm probably not going to highlight deserts. And again, we might have a text about fairgrounds. It's probably going to say fairgrounds 60 times in the text. So that's not going to help us. All right. So that's why I'm not highlighting deserts. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to read through. Deserts are found on all 7 continents. We've got a number, so we've got 7. I'm going to highlight continents. My other little tip is, we really don't want to be highlighting more than 1 or 2 words at a time. We don't want to be highlighting full sentences. We don't want to be highlighting really 3 or 4 words at a time. They're not going to be helpful, because the whole point of highlighting or underlining is to help our eyes see the information. But what is a desert? A desert is a region that receives 25 centimeters of rain per year. They can be hot and dry, semi-arid, cold. I always say as well, any information that's in punctuation is important. So these are in apostrophes essentially. So if you saw information in brackets or dashes, I would highlight that information as well. Or coastal, and make up 1/3, that's a fraction, that's a number, of our planet's land area. Just going to highlight land area. Deserts are also called arid areas, which come from the Latin, it's a name, word aridus, meaning dry. Approximately 1 billion, that's a number, people live in the desert regions on Earth. I'm going to highlight desert regions. Only 20% of the world's deserts are made up of sand. That is a noun. Most deserts are icy or made up of rocks and gravel. Okay, so even though I've not highlighted and is never going to be, all right, you might say over here, I've highlighted and, but where possible, rocks and gravel, we're just going to highlight rocks, gravel, because and is never going to be an answer on its own. All right, rocks or gravel could be. The largest, I quite like that. Okay. Again, although we've said that's going to be something in fiction, and largest is like that comparative adjective that's telling us it's the biggest. Okay, that's probably quite important. You could quite easily imagine there being a question about that. The largest hot desert in the world is, just remove this, the Sahara in North Africa. Again, nouns, which is almost as large as Europe. The Sahara Desert is also the hottest desert in the world. The driest desert in the world is the Atacama Desert in South America, where no rain, that's probably quite important, no rain fell for 401 years between 1570 and 1971. Now, have a look at that text. How good does that look in the sense that there's so much information that's probably not relevant. It's not, and when I say not relevant, it's not going to be an answer. Deserts are also called approximately the world's deserts made up of hot desert in the world, which is almost as large as, is also, none of those are going to be an answer. Okay. So the key bit now is answering questions. We've read the text. How is this information, this key information, going to help us? Now, we've read the text and you might be great at remembering information. Fantastic. The whole point of highlighting these bits of information is to help us get back to that information when we need to. So we're looking for these bits of information in the questions. Okay, so watch. We're now going to look for key information in the questions. The same things, the nouns, the numbers, the adjectives. All right, so we're going to highlight them off in here as well. So if we look at the first question here, we're going to work through these 5 W's questions. A lot of these are very similar to SATs. We've got multiple choice, true or false, and just general retrieval questions. What fraction of the Earth's desert, what fraction of the Earth's land area is desert? Okay, so the key bit there, the key bit of information is probably that clue of fraction. So in the text, I'm thinking, okay, where is there a fraction? Now, again, we don't need to read the whole text. I'm just skimming the key information, region 25, 1/3. There we go. So I just read back now. There can be hot and dry, arid, cold, and make up 1/3 of our planet's land area. Brilliant. So I'm going to answer that question and just put in 1/3. Okay. I'm going to go to black. 1/3. Fantastic. Okay. Next question. What does aridus mean? Now, again, key unknown vocabulary. We don't know what it means, but we didn't know what this word means, but we've highlighted it here. We've spotted it very, very quickly. Where is it? There. Okay. So then if this does crop under the question could have been anything about aridus. The brilliant thing about unknown vocabulary is if you don't know a word and it's so abstract like this one, it's only going to crop up in a text once. So we can find it really quickly. If I was reading this question now, what does aridus mean? Oh, that was that word. There it is. I just read the sentence. What does it mean? Which comes from the Latin word meaning dry. Dead simple. So I've found the answer super, super quick. It means dry. Job done. And again, multiple choice. If I just read the question, approximately how many people live in desert regions on Earth? Again, the key information in that question, the key information is desert regions. Where does it say desert regions in the text? Here it is. I go back and read the sentence. approximately 1 billion people live in desert regions. Very, very simple. Where's 1 billion? I would circle that and I would get the answer. So you can see very quickly how we're finding information quickly. True or false. So I'm trying to prove whether these statements are true or false. The Sahara Desert is a cold desert. So the key information is Sahara Desert. So where does it say the Sahara Desert? I think it actually says it twice in the text, but I can spot it straight away. It says there Sahara and Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert is also the hottest desert. So that is false. So again, you can really quickly see how I'm moving through these questions very, very quickly, and I'm not guessing. I'm just using the key information. So again, the Atacama, again, it's never going to say Atacama more than once. Also, so we've got, in this question, brilliant, we've got a name, which is only going to be said once, so we know where that information is, and we've got a date, 1570. The Atacama Desert once had no rain for 1,570 years. So to go back to Atacama, the Atacama Desert, where no rain fell for 401 years. So that is false. So I can write that in, very, very simple, false. Let's look at the next question. 20% of the world's deserts are icy and rocky. I remember 20%, it's up here, there we go. Only 20% of the world's deserts are made up of sand. 20% of the world's deserts are icy and rocky. So that's false as well. Okay, so quite quickly, once we found the information, we can then make these logical deductions. We can do the reading skill, which is true or false. And then again, so if I just go back, because I didn't highlight it off, it was that, wasn't it? 20%. And we could have found icy or rocky. But if we'd found icy or rocky, icy or rocks, we would have needed to go back to the start of the sentence. Only 20% of the world's deserts are made up of sand. So once you find the key information in the text, go back to the start of the sentence and read that sentence and maybe even read on a bit further. The next question, deserts have less than 25 centimeters of rainfall per year. Okay, so it's that concept of rain. And I remember that was up here. There's the rain. So the statement says deserts have less than 25 centimeters. A desert region receives less than 25 centimeters of rain per year. So that's true. Fantastic. So we can answer that very simply. And you can see quite quickly, once we really understand what the key information is, the names, the numbers, the unknown vocabulary, we know it's a name, but it's only going to say Atacama once. So we know where that's going to be. Okay. So quite quickly, we've unpicked this text, we've identified the key information, and then we find the key information in the questions. Again, I didn't highlight Aridus, which I should have. No, we don't like that. But the key information in these texts, basically, we see that in the question, Aridus, what does it mean? And we just go back to the text. So there it is. The answer's in here. Atacama, the answer's in here. 20%, the answer's in here. So we can find the information very, very quickly using our signposts to navigate this map. Okay, very simple, but very, very effective. So let's have a look. Let's have a little bit of a look at another question or another set of texts. So let's just get straight into it and read the text, and we're going to highlight off some of this key information. And again, we can see that this is a non-fiction text. The next two texts after this are fiction, and we'll see the difference. And again, reptiles, it's probably going to say reptiles a lot. So I'm not going to highlight reptiles every time I see it. You know, reptile. It'll say it somewhere else. Reptile. So again, because we've got reptiles, I'm going to highlight in green this time just to keep a little bit of a theme. Reptiles are cold-blooded vertebrates that are usually covered in scales and lay eggs. Quite important information. They include lizards, tortoises, turtles, snakes, crocodiles, and alligators. Now, my other top tip as well is these are all names, but whenever you get commas in a list, okay, lizards, whenever you get any information that's in where commas are used, and to create a list, highlight those things. So if there was a list that said, my favorite books are Skellig, The Wolf Wilder, and The Smartest Giant in Town, I would highlight all three of those. Okay, I would be aware of all three of those items. because they will probably be the answer to a question. Let's keep on highlighting. Reptiles can be found on every continent apart from Antarctica. All right. The smallest reptile, again, comparative, smallest, that's an adjective, is thought to be the nano chameleon from Madagascar, name, growing up to just over 22 millimeters in length. The biggest reptile, comparative, is the saltwater crocodile, which can grow to 6.5 meters long. Again, just names, numbers, unknown vocabulary. A crocodile only requires, here's a fraction, so a number, a tenth of the food a lion does for survival. I want to highlight survival. If necessary, a crocodile, so again, be aware, we're talking about crocodiles a lot, can go up to half, fraction, so I'll just half a year without eating, verb. The heaviest snake, because again, remember, the heaviest snake, the more we highlight, the less effective the highlighting is. Because if we just highlight everything, then we might as well highlight nothing. All right? So we've really got to be selective. Is the green anaconda. That's the name. The reticulated python. And again, here, reticulated, you might have no idea what that means. It doesn't matter. Okay? All we're trying to do here, if we think about the strand of the question, it's retrieval of information. So you're never going to get a question saying what, unless it tells you what a reticulated python is or what reticulated means, you're never going to get a question that asks you what does reticulated mean, unless there's a really odd vocabulary question, but there won't be. All right. So this is just a word that you need to just be aware of, because if we get a question about reticulated, brilliant. I can just get back to this very, very quickly because it only says it once. And it's very, very obvious where it is. Okay, so unknown vocabulary is actually a really good thing because we can get there really quickly. Is the longest snake. The smallest snake is the thread snake, which can grow to around 10.4 centimeters long. The fastest reptile is the spiny-tailed iguana, which can run up to, verb, 20 miles per hour. Okay. So again, very simple. The key information is we've got the nouns, the numbers, the unknown vocabulary. We've got the odd verb and adjective in there. So for now, we're in a place where we can answer these questions very, very simple or very, very simply. Okay, let's have a look. So when was the first? So I've quickly just swapped out some questions because the wrong ones are in there. So let's have a little bit of a quick look now. I'm just going to rub that out. So we can have a look at these questions now. So where can reptiles be found? And again, the key sort of information, we didn't highlight this one off, but that's fine. We've sort of got where can reptiles be found. Over here, we've also got found. Okay, you can see that over here. Reptiles can be found on every continent apart from Antarctica. So the answer is every continent. So we can write that in. I'm just going to make the pencil a little bit smaller. Obviously, the boxes here are small. So we've got every continent. Now, in your SATs, I should spell this right, continent. In your SATs, you've got a bit more room to write, and you can make it a lot neater. So again, what is the largest reptile? Key bit of information. Largest. Okay. Largest. Reptile isn't useful because it says reptile a zillion times in this text. But largest, that comparative adjective, we're looking for it, aren't we? So where did it say the largest? Now, it doesn't say largest. We've got the heaviest, the smallest. We've got the fastest. But we've got the biggest, okay? So there's a little bit of a clue there. Biggest, the largest. The biggest reptile is the saltwater crocodile. So we're going to go with that. Saltwater crocodile. I'm just going to put croc just for space. You guys would obviously write crocodile. And again, how big is the nano chameleon? Again, how often is a text going to say nano chameleon? It's not. It's going to say it once. So we've got nano chameleon. I can't remember the information, but I can get here very, very quickly. Okay, the smallest reptile is the nano chameleon from Madagascar, growing just over 22 millimeters. So I'm going to write that in, 22 millimeters, very quickly. And then again, which is the longest snake? So we're spotting those comparative adjectives. Okay, longest. Where does it say longest in the text? We've got the heaviest, the smallest, the fastest, and the longest snake. The reticulated python is the longest snake. So that's a good example of reading back. So we've got longest snake. If we were to read on, that's not going to help us. So we've got to go back to the start of the sentence. Heaviest snake is the green anaconda. The reticulated python is the longest snake. So again, I'm going to write in reticulated python. Get my spellings right. Reticulated python. Okay, happy. And again, we're moving on. So these were just pure retrieval, true or false. So again, we're going to use the information to work out whether these statements are true or false. And then we're going to put a T or an F in these. In your SAT, you often get these crop up in a bundle like this, where you've got to get all 5 right for sort of, say, 2 marks or 3 marks. So it's good to be able to do this. Key bit is just spotting the key information. What's the key information? Well, is the I'm just going to take that off because we want the highlighter. The largest snake, okay? This says it's the thread snake. Let's check. Well, we can remember this. The largest snake, the longest snake, is the reticulated python, the heaviest snake. So that's a little bit unfair with the largest snake, but we're going to assume that's the longest snake is the reticulated python. So it's definitely not the thread snake. So that's false. I'm going to change that to black. That's false. Anacondas are the heaviest snake. So again, key information, heaviest snake. Is it the anaconda? The heaviest snake is the green anaconda. So that is true. Very simple. Crocodiles need more food than lions. So again, key word, very, very simple, is crocodiles and lions. It's not going to say lions very often in a text about reptiles. So where does it say lion? Here it is. So let's read it. A crocodile only requires 1/10 of the food a lion does. So crocodiles don't need more food, so this is false. Very, very simple. And then finally, thread snakes can grow up to 6.5 meters long. Okay, let's just find the information. So thread snakes is the key bit of information. So where does it talk about thread snakes? Let's find it. Here it is, thread snake. The smallest snake is the thread snake, which can grow to around 10.4 centimeters long. This says thread snakes can grow to 6.5 meters long. So that's clearly false. So we can answer that and move on. So again, I hope you can see that because we've identified the key information in the text and understand what key information actually means, it means names, numbers, and statistics. Sorry, names, numbers, and unknown vocabulary. 3 things, dead easy to remember. And then the 2 other things are nouns and verbs. So this was a good example of found. Okay, the concept of finding something. Where do you find this? So that sense of found is important. But again, once we've done that, we've picked out all the key information. There isn't any other information that's important. And then when it comes to answering questions, we're not having to think, where's the information? Where is it? Well, actually, if we're just looking for the largest snake, we can remember that's here. If we're just looking for heaviest or anacondas, where does it say anacondas? There, it says anaconda. You know, it's very, very easy then to navigate a text. You will save time. You will answer questions correctly, get more marks, and that's how we're going to be successful or more successful in our reading SATs. Now, we're only going to look at 2 more, this text and another text, and that's going to be the end of the video because I don't want to overwhelm anybody. But again, we're going to look at some true or false questions and we're going to look at multiple choice. Again, question types that come up. So let's just read the text. We can see that we've got a fiction text. Excuse me. This text is a bit blue in color. So I'm just going to highlight in blue just to, again, to change it up. Let's have a look. So again, same thing. Names, numbers, unknown vocabulary. Because it's fiction, probably going to have less numbers, but we will still have some numbers in there. And then we're also looking for those verbs and those adjectives as well, where they crop up. So again, Ben had his kit laid out. He knew the conditions would be worse than anything he had ever experienced before. It would be winter, and the temperature could be as low as -50, that's a number, degrees Celsius. His first bit of kit was an outdoor research mask to stop, again, verb, ice forming, verb, on his face. He also had, so again, that information is not important. What is important is a custom-made breathable jacket. Again, I've said before, we don't want to highlight more than 1 or 2 words, but this is a phrase, a custom-made breathable jacket. Okay? The adjectives that are describing the jacket. All right. Again, he would need a lot of fuel. Again, you might not know what that word means, so we're going to highlight it, unknown vocabulary. But he would also need a lot of food. He would eat, verb, 6,000 calories, so we've got a number and a name in there, a day, to cope. What does cope mean? Not sure. With the extreme conditions, including lots of energy bars and chocolate. Luckily, he also had a custom-made sledge made from carbon fiber Kevlar. No idea what that is, but I'm going to highlight it. How often does it say in a text, carbon fiber Kevlar? Never. Well, it says it once here. So if we get a question about carbon fiber and Kevlar, fantastic, because I know where that word is and I can get there very, very quickly. To haul, some of you might know that that means pull, but if you didn't, you would highlight that word. All of the supplies, including communication devices to keep in contact with the outside world. I'm just going to put in contact. His boots and skis were ready for maximum movement. I'll just highlight, it feels like that needs highlighting. More like a verb, through the shifting terrain of snow and ice. He was ready. So there's quite a lot. If you look back at this text, there's quite a lot of information that isn't highlighted. All right. So there's only little bits of information in this text that are actually relevant, I think. Again, let's have a go. Let's look at some true or false. I'm just going to move this over slightly. There we go. Move this over slightly. So, true or false question. So again, now we can focus on whether this statement is true or false. So we've got to use a little bit of detective skills to answer it. So Ben needed to eat 6,000 calories. So again, remember the word 6,000, it's over here. He would eat 6,000 calories a day. Fantastic. So we know that that's true. And ideally, once we're doing this, we want to be moving quite quickly. The sledge was made from carbon fiber. Carbon fiber. Okay, but let's read back. So we've got carbon fiber. So in fact, I'm just going to highlight the key information again. So we've got 6,000 calories number. We've got the sledge, carbon fiber. In this one, we've got sledge, custom made. In this one, we've got temperature, -40. And then in this one, we've got Ben needed to eat fruit for energy. Eat fruit for energy. So we can come back to these in a minute. So the sledge, we've got the sledge was made from carbon fiber. Luckily, he also had a custom-made sledge made from carbon fiber. So, fantastically enough, that's true. Let's have a look at the next one. The sledge was custom-made. Luckily, so the sledge, he also had a custom-made sledge. So that is also true. Fantastic. We're moving very quickly through the questions, which is what we want. The temperature, where did it say temperature? Here's the word temperature. The temperature was -40 degrees. The temperature could be low as -50 degrees. So that is false. And then the final question, Ben needed to eat fruit. So where did it talk about eating? Eat fruit. So we've got, here we go, include energy. So eat. He would eat 6,000 calories a day. Let's read on. To cope with the extreme conditions, including lots of energy bars and chocolate. Did he eat fruit? No, he didn't. So that was false. So quite quickly, again, I'm doing a lot of talking as I always do. But if you were just in the zone, 6,000 calories, where is it? There it is. Sledge, there it is. Carbon fiber, there it is. Sledge, custom made, yeah. And some of these you'll just remember because you're reading the text. You remember, where did it say temperature? There it is. Was it -40? No, it wasn't. Ben needed fruit. No, he didn't. It was chocolate bars because I like chocolate bars. So very quickly, you could answer this in 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. So you've answered 4 or 5 questions in the space of 20, 30, 40 seconds. All right. So let's have a look at the multiple choice. Which piece of equipment was breathable? Key bit of information, the word breathable, the adjectives that's describing it, telling us that air flows through it. Where did it say breathable? There. Which piece of equipment was breathable? You also had a custom-made breathable jacket. Mask, jacket, skis, sledge, it's jacket. So we're going to highlight that, or we're going to circle it. It says circle or shade it. We're going to circle it. It's the jacket. And that's what you would do in the SATs. So again, very, very easy. And this, again, I like to think this information, or this, you understanding the key information and how it is in the text and the questions can be adapted into your strategy that your teacher has taught you so far. Because it's just looking at the text slightly differently and thinking, well, what are the nouns? The nouns, the numbers, the unknown vocabulary. Nouns, numbers, unknown vocabulary. And then the verbs and adjectives. Okay. Very, very simple. 3 things, 2 verbs and adjectives, 5 things, and you can then see what all the information is going to be. You're basically highlighting the answers. That's one way of looking at it. You're highlighting what the answers can be, because the answers can't be, could be as, than anything he ever had. Would he need a lot of? But with the including lots of, would also need. No, they're never going to be the answers. The answers are going to be carbon fiber Kevlar. They're going to be haul, shifting terrain, winter, temperature, outdoor research mask to stop ice forming on his face. Those are going to be the answers, okay? So the nouns, the numbers, and the unknown vocabulary are the key information, but they're going to be the answers as well. They're going to be the answers, or they're going to help you find the answers. So that's why this key information is so important. And let's have a look at this final text. I'm going to highlight in red this time, just to give it a little bit of difference. So I really like this text. Let's have a, I'm just going to try and shift it over a little bit. In fact, it's fine. Right, let's get going. Let's read the text. And again, we're looking, it's a fiction text. So we're still looking for nouns, numbers, and unknown vocabulary. And remember, you don't need to fret or worry over, have I got it all? In that you've seen me in examples, I won't have got it all. You're gonna, if you read through it and highlight off the nouns, numbers, and the unknown vocabulary, and then try to highlight the verbs and adjectives that are appropriate, you're going to be in about 80% region. And that's fine. That's going to allow you to get to most of the information very quickly. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to speed you up and give you a process to get back to the information very, very quickly. So the city was bustling with activity. Bustling, yeah, unknown vocabulary, highlighted off. Vast screens lit up every building with vivid colours, advertising the latest products to buy. Swift vehicles flew, so we've got a noun and then a verb, past these endless lines of hurry. Oh, can't just see that. Past these in endless lines, hurrying here and there. Swift vehicles flew past these in endless lines, hurrying here and there. Hovercams made announcements constantly. The noise was incredible. Down below, the streets had roads with automated vehicles. Pedestrians, so there's quite a lot of intense vocabulary here. Pedestrians used travelators. The city was in constant movement. Vast domed skyscrapers dominated the landscape. There were electronic signs and wall screens on every surface. Behind these, people lived with their robotic helpers. Drones were sent out of open windows. So I'm going to highlight sent to deliver packages or pick up parcels of supplies. The spaceport was at the edge of the city. Huge spaceships came and went. There was a wormhole just beyond the moon, and interstellar travel was a daily occurrence. Earth was now part of an intergalactic alliance. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot of words, a lot of vocabulary in there that is probably unknown, and there's lots of verbs, lots of adjectives: dominated, automated, constantly, vast, vivid, electronic, daily, interstellar, intergalactic, okay? Domed, skies, domed, dominated. So there's a huge amount of vocabulary in here. So we know that we're going to get questions, but nonetheless, that's still going to help us, okay? So let's just go through it. So again, this is a good example to finish on, because you might read a text like this and think, oh, I don't really understand it. The key thing to go away with, if you're not the most confident reader and you've read this and you haven't really understood it, it doesn't matter. You can still get the marks. You can still score a lot of marks. Let's just see how we do it, okay? And again, it just goes back to what's the key information? Announcements. It's just like playing, a good way of looking at it, it's just like playing Snap or matching tiles. You're just matching up the words to get you to the information. Look, announcements. What made announcements? I don't know. Just nip back. Announcements. What made? Hovercams made announcements. Fantastic. So I don't know what a hovercam is. So but I know the text is telling me that's what it was. Sorry, the handwriting on this is shocking. I'm going to rub that out. Let's just rub that out and write it a bit more neatly, Andrew. So, hovercams. Fantastic. It doesn't matter if you don't know what a hovercam is. It's made up. It doesn't matter. You've got the mark. Here we go. Next one. What dominated the landscape? So again, that word dominated, where did it say it? So again, I'm just quickly nipping through. Dominated, there we go. Vast domed skyscrapers dominated the landscape. So I'm going to write that in very quickly. Doesn't matter if I don't understand it. I'm just going to write in vast, and I'm just copying domed skyscrapers. I'm literally just copying the words from the text. Job done. What did people live with? Okay, so again, key bit of information is live with, isn't it? What did they live with? I sort of remember that around here. Behind these, people lived with their robotic helpers. Fantastic. So I've gone through there. I've got my robotic helpers. So I'm just writing that in. Robotic helper. Job done. Next one. Where was the spaceport? Again, keyword spaceport. It's not going to say spaceport very often. I remember it's somewhere near the bottom. Huge spaceships. The spaceport was at the edge of the city. Fantastic. So I'm going to nip back there. Edge of city. That's that one done. And then the final question, what was beyond the moon? Okay, so beyond the moon. And even just the key word could be the moon. Where does it say the word moon? Yeah, name, moon. There's moon. Beyond the moon, there was a wormhole just beyond the moon. Fantastic. I'll take wormhole. No idea what that is. Job done. And this is what I mean. You could encounter a text where it talks about something you have no idea about. But that's not what it's testing. It's testing, can you find the information in the text? That's what it's testing. And by doing this, by doing what I'm showing you, you can get easy marks. So again, true or false. All we're trying to do is match up words from the key information from the question to the key information in the text. All right. You will have to sort of remember roughly where certain things are. So let's just go through and highlight the key information off dead quickly. So bustling. Where did it say bustling? Where did it say vast screens? Where did it say drones or packages? Earth was part of an intergalactic alliance. Dead obvious. And the spaceport. Okay. We're basically able to answer the questions now. First one, the city was bustling with activity. It said bustling right at the start. The city was bustling with activity. Correct. So that's true. Next one. Every building had vast screens. Where did it say vast screens? Vast screens lit up every building. That's true. Next one. Drones delivered packages. Where did it say drones? Capital letter, must be the start of a sentence. Here it is. Drones were sent out of open windows to deliver packages. Got to read on. That is also true. Next question. Earth was part of an intergalactic alliance. Remember it saying that near the bottom. Earth was, so intergalactic alliance, go back to the start of the sentence. Earth was now part of an intergalactic alliance. This one's true. So we're not guessing. A lot of children tend to just guess with true or false questions. We're not guessing. We're finding the facts. The spaceport was at the edge of the city. Spaceport was over here. There it is. The spaceport was at the edge of the city. That one's true as well. So fantastically, we've answered all them correctly. We've got all the marks. And then again, finally, matching. Matching questions do crop up where we're just trying to join information that matches. So we've got dominated the landscape. So what dominated the landscape? We've got three options. Skyscrapers, robots, wormhole. Dominated. Where did it say dominated? It was over here, wasn't it? Dominated. Vast domed skyscrapers dominated the landscape. So we've got skyscrapers. So I'm going to join them up. Job done. You'd use a ruler probably. Interstellar travel. Is that linked to robots or wormholes? So let's read. We've got interstellar travel. There was now a wormhole just beyond the moon, and interstellar travel was a daily occurrence. So they're linked. So we're matching them up together. And then that leaves me one. I'm not just going to automatically helping people. Robots, let's just prove it. Robots, robotic helpers. Behind these, people lived with their robotic helpers, robots and helping. Perfect. So we know that's right. And again, the key information is just all of these are just key information, key information, key information, key information, key information, key information, key information. All right. Look, dominated, skyscrapers. Where's skyscrapers? Skyscrapers, robots, wormhole, helping people, helping, interstellar travel. So there's a lot of information in this video. There's a lot of information, but it all hinges, there's a lot of examples, but it all hinges around three things: nouns, numbers, unknown vocabulary. And once you've found those, along with verbs and adjectives, and this text was very dense with verbs and adjectives. Once we've found them, and then we find the same words in the questions, you can then navigate to and the whole purpose of this, to finish with, is to be able to get from this question to the right part of the text. Bustling. Now I can read and find the answer. Vast screens. Now I can find the answer, or I can decide on what the answer is. Okay. Where was the spaceport? Okay. Now I can read and I can decide on what my answer is going to be. So the whole point of finding the key information is to be able to get from here to here as quickly as possible and as confidently as possible, so that you can answer the question that's in front of you. Okay. And that's what today is all about. And I think this can help lots of people in their SATs, even in a few weeks. Well, I hope that was something useful. And again, that's probably the final week of saying hope. It's unlikely that we're going to produce too many more videos, especially around reading, unless there's something drastically that I think of in the next week that I think that could really help. But this strategy of key information is going to be something that can really help you in the coming weeks. When you get to those texts, as you're reading, identify the nouns, the numbers, and the unknown vocabulary, and that will help you answer questions. Spot the same information in the questions and just jump back to the text as quickly as you can. Read before, read the sentence it's in, and the sentence after, and you'll pretty much get the answer, okay? Very, very effective strategy, very simple strategy, and I think it's something that all of you can use when it comes to your SATs in a few weeks' time. So I think the beauty of what you've just watched is that you can do this and it doesn't go against what your teachers have probably already asked you to do. I know I've highlighted a lot of information. I'm not expecting that you're going to highlight, but you may underline, you may just make mental notes of where those words are, or even if you don't, you can just spot where those words are in the text, roughly remember they were at the end or the beginning or the middle, quickly scan for them, and you'll get the answer, okay? So I really hope this video has helped. It took a lot of effort to put into it. Please subscribe to the channel and like the videos, but most importantly, please tell other people about the videos so that it can help them with their SATs. I've really enjoyed producing this reading video. Good luck with your SATs. I'd love to know how you get on. Leave some comments and let me know if this video was useful. And as I've said previously, good luck in your SATs, good luck with your arithmetic, super good luck with your reading. Use the key information to help you be more successful, and I'll see you on the other side of your SATs.